What is going on, folks? It's me, Mrbucketlist here, and today I bring you all my top 5 craziest, funniest, and strangest situations I've ever been on a cruise ship. Let's check it out. Now, before we get started, like usual, I want to give a shout out to my new and current viewers of the channel. I'm glad that you're here. Obviously, this is a new style of video for me, so again, I'm glad you all are around and check it out. As far as the video itself, so each and every one of these situations that I will talk about can be found in my previous solo documentaries. So what I'll go ahead and do is I'll make sure when I name the actual situation itself, I'll leave a title card on there. So if you want to go back and check out that video, it'll be there for you. I will be honest with you all, from majority of these numbers on here, it happened multiple times, multiple cruises. So you can just kind of pick one and just have at it. The second thing I want to mention is, as far as the situations itself, this is YouTube, this is the internet, so I'm not going to post anything that will be incriminating or that'll potentially get me banned or arrested, anything like that. So if you're like, oh, it's kind of tame and this and that, that's the reason why, because I just didn't want to go overboard and then end up turning this into a nightmare that I have to deal with in the future. So just a heads up about that. Either way, it'll still be fun. Other than that, I hope you all enjoy the video. Let's get to number 5. All right, what's your name? Steve. Fights. You all knew this was coming, but it's a little bit more deeper than Steve and what happened in Alaska. I'll get to that. But when I was making this video, I actually thought back. I'm like, wait a minute. On my first cruise, I was actually involved in an altercation. And so back on the NCO Sky, this is back in 2014, my first cruise ever. I was still in college at the time. My friend, me and him had went to some bar. And he was me mugging this other guy that was at the bar with his homeboys that went to some other school, some university in Michigan. And the guy from Michigan walked up to my friend and was like, "How smart are you? You look like an idiot." And so they started getting to this altercation. Like, are you serious right now? It was such a dumb insult. I was like, this is not happening. This is so ridiculous. But the bad thing was, his friends started sizing me up because they saw that we were friends and hanging out. Now, he had about 6 of them with him, and it was just me and my one friend. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. Now, at the time period, I was actually taking boxing lessons. So I was like, okay, I can maybe do 2 or 3 of these guys. If they're drunk, maybe 4. But I was like, this guy is really pushing it. And thankfully, no hands were thrown. Security came and broke it up. And then, ironically, my friend that I took the cruise with ended up being BFS with the guy afterwards. And I was like, you know what? I'm never hanging out with this guy again. Like, we're not doing anything. I may possibly start solo cruising, and that's where I am today. But that was my first altercation. Like I said, I didn't get hit, I didn't start it, I just happened to be in it. Second time was, of course, Symphony of the Seas. Just watching people in VIP section arguing with another guy about who made more money. It was just such the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And it was just crazy because punches are thrown. I'm just sitting here thinking like, oh my God, these guys are scaring off my cougar. Like, it was just, she was so scared and holding on to me. I'm like, look at these thugs arguing about money. It was so ridiculous just seeing 2 older white guys literally screaming about who had more money and reserving seats. Most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And then, of course, the top of the cake, the cherry on top, is me fighting that bum in Alaska. You all, I never thought in a million years that I would be in the middle of a rainforest fighting some guy that tried to mug me. It was so ridiculous. Oh my goodness. Like, I was so mad. It was just weird too because we were fighting. I did what I had to, and then the guy was on the ground. He just started rolling around. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, do I keep hitting him? Like, I had never been in that situation. I didn't really know what to do, and nobody was there to break it up or anything. So I realized he was gonna stay down. He didn't really like say much. He was just kind of like, just like moaning and stuff. I was like, okay, we're done here. And so I just kind of walked off. It was so ridiculous, but yes, that was my number 5, fights. Number 4, almost missing the ship and knowing someone that did. So what a coincidence that we're talking about the Symphony of the Seas and the NCO Sky again. Now, on the NCO Sky, this was almost my fault, and then just kind of, I didn't understand the seriousness of it. That was my first cruise. We were in some random taxi that took us to some bar that we ended up drinking with those guys that were almost fighting a couple days before, and we were having a drinking contest. So we were just really relaxed, getting trash, stuff like that. And there was just, it was weird because, like I said, we were at some random bar nowhere near the port, And my friend kept saying, hey man, we got to get back to the ship. I was like, oh, don't worry about it. They're not going to leave us. I had no idea that cruise ships don't leave. And so he was just really scared looking. And so finally I was like, okay, something's up. I was like, maybe we got to go because he just looks really scared. And so we ended up going back. But the crazy thing was, one of the guys that we met on the ship, he wanted to go and do some other stuff, do some hardcore drugs and stuff like that. And he had some other guy was like, I'll take you to some special place and stuff like that. We never saw the man again. And so a couple days after we got back onto the cruise ship, one of his friends was like, oh man, Ryan never made it back to the cruise, and I got his passport and all this stuff right here. And so it was just crazy. He literally got left, and he eventually found me on Facebook, and he was like, yeah man, he was like, pretty much he got like almost kidnapped in a way, and they drugged him up, and just, he was fine, but man, yeah, he had to pay a lot of money to get back to the States. It was crazy. And then as far as the second time around, as you all may have watched my Symphony of the Seas videos, similar situation. We were on the ATVs, drinking and stuff like that. The reason why we almost missed the ship is because our tour ended during rush hour. And so we were literally halfway across the island, and traffic rush hour in St. Martin, I mean, it's not moving. I mean, those streets are small, one way each way. They don't have any highways or anything like that. It was crazy. And I don't know if everybody made it back on time. I'll put a little snippet up there so you all can see how much time I had left over. But the biggest concern was I was doing that tour through a third-party vendor. So, I mean, the ship wasn't liable for somebody like me if I got left behind. And that was my biggest concern. So, again, just a crazy situation. I'm glad I made it, and I'm glad I'm here to be able to talk about it. Number 3. Cruising before the cruise shut down. Now, being that I put that at number 3, anyone that's not familiar with my channel might think, oh, well, he must have got stuck out at sea, or he must have had a bad time, or never got to cruise. That wasn't the case whatsoever. This literally is ranked as one of my top 2 favorite cruises, because this is literally one of the last experiences of what cruising used to be before the pandemic, without all the different changes they had basically pre-pandemic. And so what I mean by that is a lot of people that went on cruises in March and I guess even April of 2020, they started shutting things down. Of course, they started limiting capacity. They started doing all these weird little changes, and it was just really uncertain. Then eventually they just stopped cruising altogether. I had one of the last official cruises before any of that stuff took place, but at the same time, the vibe was so weird because we all knew something was going to happen. So we said, you know what? Let's just live it. Let's just live and let die. Let's just have the best time of our life. And we did. It was just such an amazing time. No limited capacity, no limited showings, no limited food. Everything was the way it was and the way it probably will never be before cruising shut down. And it was just so amazing, such a great time. But the ironic thing was, as soon as our ship got back into port, which was in the first week in March, the next cruise right after us, they literally had to turn around because people got sick, people were dying, things were shut down. People said it was a horrible cruise. And so I literally missed it by one cruise, literally one day, and I would have been in that situation. And so it is more memorable than more than anything. And it was also my number 3. Number 2, swingers. Now, like I said earlier in the video, I'm going to try to keep this video as clean and as family friendly as possible and not talk about anything that's going to be self-incriminating. The reason why I mentioned that is, for this situation, I definitely said no. It was just so weird. Like, that spa was so nice, and I was just having such a good time. Like, there was multiple times I was just in the hot tub with a bunch of just older women, and we were just kind of talking about stuff, and they were asking me questions and stuff like that. And I actually felt good at the time, because that was right when I had lost that 30 pounds in 30 days. I mean, I was in shape, I was feeling good, I was single, the world was about to end, it was 2020, March of 2020. So, I mean, everything was just like, you know what, I'm just here to have a good time. And so when that lady asked for the rub down, I was just enjoying it so much. I'm like, she looks good. She's a little bit older, but it's all good. Like, yes, let's get this. And then when that man came out of nowhere and he just kept mugging me, I'm sitting there looking like, what's going on? And then he sat down, and it was just such the strangest conversation. He was like, you know, that's my wife, right? And I'm just like, oh my goodness. Like, I was so scared. Because, I mean, the guy was big. And I'm like, look, I'm touching this man's wife. And then he was like, nah, it's good, buddy. And he started talking to me about swinging and stuff. I'm just like, oh man. Like, it's just, I'm literally, you all have no idea. I didn't go into detail on this actual solo cruise video itself, but man, I was dizzy. Like, I was so dizzy about what was happening. I'm like, this is just weird that people actually do this type of stuff. And then, man, I just think about it now. I'm just like, God, like, man. Yes, that swinging situation in that spa, that kind of started everything. I was like, you know what, man? These cruise ships are wild. Now let's cue the Watch Mojo music and let's do some honorable mentions. Cruising right after the shutdown ended. A lot of people don't know, but that was literally one of the best times to cruise, right before it started and then right after it ended. The main reason why it was such a great time after it ended was I was on a cruise ship that holds close to 7,000 guests with 700 guests on board. People say, oh, that's boring, this and that. No, it's not. It was amazing. It felt like VIP. It felt like being on a big yacht. I mean, everywhere you went, you had about like 10 people trying to take care of you and getting free this, free that, and private shows. It was amazing. That's literally an experience that people pay like $10,000, $20,000 for. We got it for literally my cheapest cruise I've ever been on. It was literally over $300. Amazing. And lastly, cruising during a polar vortex. Yes, it's as bad as it sounds. And so, ironically, that was on my first cruise. And when we're in the Bahamas, you would think, oh, they're in the Bahamas, they shouldn't be concerned about something like that. It hit them too. So basically the weather, at least while we were there, was between 50 to 60 degrees. They're not used to that, so they were freaking out, and they didn't have the clothes for that, so they were freezing. It was a mess. And so, I mean, this is my first cruise. I didn't think it was a big deal. I'm like, it's whatever. I'll just have a good time anyway. But they were just really just upset and nervous about it because they thought it was the end of the world. They had never been that cold before in their life, and it was just really strange. The cool thing was, not only were they kind of freaking out, but a lot of the guests and stuff just weren't willing to get off the ship because the weather was so cold. And so I'll throw a little quick picture up there, but we went to Atlantis, and I literally had all the slides, all the pools, everything to myself. So even though I was there with somebody else, I was still upset about him trying to fight those dudes in the bar. So I kind of did my own thing, and that was almost like a precursor to me doing my solo travel. I was like, you know what? I can do my own thing and have a good time. So I did. But either way, that was just a really weird experience. And number 1, cougars on every single cruise. Folks, I have given up and given in. However you want to look at it, I love the cougars. So I do talk about the cougars a lot more in my most recent videos versus my older videos, but that's not to say it didn't previously happen. As far as for me, it was really noticeable, especially on my first solo cruise on the NCL Epic. So let me set the scene up on this one here. So we were actually at the Solos program dinner, and initially it was about 20 of us. We were all eating dinner, having a good time and stuff like that. And then people started breaking off, doing their own thing, leaving and stuff like that. So basically it was left down to me, this older guy I ended up becoming friends with, and then this older woman, aka the cougar. And so the entire time we were sitting there, for whatever reason, she just kept having like this disgusted look on her face, like she was mad at something. And so I'm just sitting there like, what is she mad about? I could tell she wanted to say something, but I didn't know what it was. And so my friend, he was one of those type of guys that just kind of hangs around and just is always there, not really saying much, doing much, but he's just always there. And so she kept looking at him with that look. And so eventually he ended up getting up. I don't know if he had to go to the bathroom or what, but he ended up leaving the table for a couple of minutes. Now, as soon as that man got up, all I could hear, and this is from behind a glass of wine, is, your friend sure likes to block, doesn't he? And I'm sitting here thinking, block, what's this woman talking about, block? And I was like, wait a minute, oh, and it just hit me. I'm like, oh man, this is what these cruises are about. This is what people do. And it was just so wild because she was almost setting the scene right before before it was just us two. She kept talking about her husband and how she left him and she was so happy to be away from him, and they had some business and they split, and she's good, she can do whatever she wants and she feels so free and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I just left my girlfriend too. I was like, she was a nutcase, and I'm so happy to be on this ship. This is my first time solo cruising. And so I had no idea what I was walking myself into. But that was like the start of it all, you all. Like, I was like, yeah, this is a real thing. Like, cougars are real, y'all. Like, it's not a meme, it's not a joke. This happened. And so we ended up hanging out and doing stuff and getting to know each other on the cruise, stuff like that. That's when it really hit me. I was like, man, like, they not playing. And then, of course, you all know about Miss Lady on my second solo cruise on the Breakaway. Obviously, you all can't forget her. She is the reason why I stopped putting people's faces in my videos, because somebody made a really good comment. Even though they were trolling me, they made a good comment about not putting people's faces in my video that basically probably didn't want it up there. And even though she knew I was recording, I told her I was a YouTuber. Who knows where my videos go, and so it's best for me to not do it anymore. That's why I stopped. But she was not the only one on that cruise. I promise there were cougars all over the place. And obviously, as my cruise went on, I think it hit the pinnacle on Symphony of the Seas. It was just like every single night, it was just cougars just everywhere. There was only one time, I think I talked about it in the video, I really can't remember, but when I was watching that show with that old man that was singing and calling me out in the show, I was literally with a group of 5 of them, and then they invited me to some wine and cheese party, and just, oh man, it was nuts. I'm like, it's just crazy. I mean, I want to talk about it so much more, but this is YouTube. I can't. Now I want to get married one day, and it's not going to be a good look. But man, oh man, I'm telling you all, like, I could literally make an entire video just talking about the crazy situations with the cougars and how I met them and stuff like that. Like, for example, one time I was sitting at one of the ice skating shows on Symphony, and this cougar was just sitting beside me, and she kept talking about how cold she was, and she was grabbing my leg and my arm and just saying how she needed to warm up. I'm like, Mama, we were sitting in front row on the ice, in front of an ice skating rink. Like, what'd you expect? But it's just like the little pickup lines. I don't know what it is, but it was just, man, man. So again, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I did go ahead and decide to tame things down a little bit. I didn't want to get flagged from YouTube, and I also have families that watch my channel, so I like to make my videos future-proof, and so here it is. But just kind of thinking back on my actual experience that I did mention here, it's just crazy. So at the time when these things were taking place, I used to always wonder, like, why is this happening to me? And then now I'm just kind of thinking, like, oh man, like, I'm so happy this happened. I got something to talk about on YouTube, so I always try to make a positive light out of a crazy or bad or funny or scary situation. So again, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you want to see more, definitely let me know. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Peace out. Thanks for watching the video. If you like what you saw, please check out my channel for more videos just like this. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Until then, I'll see you next time. Peace.